Hello everybody, GL1 here, and today we are going to talk about gears. Now, if you saw episode 142, we did an extensive show on gears and involving this set of toys here. And here's the gearbox. So what you have, this is a motor assembly, and you have, as you can see, they made it clear so you can see all the gears. And you have your little motor in here, that silver part, that's a motor. And then that hooks up to a control box. All right. And this is radio controlled. It's actually infrared controlled. And so here's another one of those motors hooked up to a shaft. And all this can be seen in episode 142 with the radio, with the remote car, and other machinations, worm gears and things. But let me show you how it works again. So here's your remote, and then you can reverse it and go in different directions. So the set came with several motor assemblies, and so you can have it do all kinds of things. Well, fortunately, I found this set here. I modified it some, but this I got for 99 cents at a secondhand store, and it's the same company, but this one came with a solar panel hooked up to a very similar gear motor assembly. See that? It's a little larger, but same size motor, and it did not come with this big orange gear or this setup here, but I wanted to do that to make a point. So all right, so it came just with the car, or the four wheels, which you can manually steer it in a direction. And when the sun hits the solar panel, it gives it quite a bit of power, and it'll move along. And so it came with the red gear and the blue gear. All right, and so that would turn. But what I added is this orange gear so that I could have it show you how this, because it's curved, it could do a 90 degrees, and then you can make, something turn that way. So, maybe it's like, some sort of drilling piece of equipment, or, you can make it like it's shooting lasers or something like that. But I'm going to put that out in the sun. We're going to see how that works. Now, years ago, probably about 10 years ago, I bought this little car for, I don't know, like $3. And you can see that it has some gears on it. So you have your little tiny motor. See that? That's a little tiny motor. That's the same kind of motor you would find in a small drone or a helicopter toy. And going to small gear turning big gear is torque. So I will say, I did reverse this. Big gear turning little gear is speed. So I put the orange gear on this motor. I rearranged everything and had it so that the large gear was turning the small gear, which was hooked up to the wheels. Well, the thing is that little gear turning big gear is torque. It's easier for the motor to move a small gear turning a large gear. It doesn't require as much energy to do that. To have a large gear turning a small gear, because that's more speed, it lowers the torque of the system. You can use less power to get more torque if you arrange the gears, small gear turning large gear. And that was, I'll tell you, a good example of that is older diesel cars versus gasoline cars. So it used to be that a diesel engine did not have a horsepower. Like you might have a diesel car that only had something like 100 horsepower, but the torque was really high. Now you wouldn't get as much speed as quickly. It would take a lot longer, and it may not actually reach the same level of speed, but it would be a much better and efficient system for large trucks that don't have to go that fast, but maybe like dump trucks that are working in a quarry, or bulldozers or things like that, because what you really need is torque. You don't need speed. So you could have less horsepower, use a diesel engine, which does not produce as much horsepower as easily, and it's designed more for torque, and then that would give you much more torque, so you could have less horsepower. So when you put a motor turning a large gear to a small gear, you really need more horsepower coming out of the motor in order to overcome the mechanical disadvantage of that. So the advantage is you get more speed, but the disadvantage is you get less torque. So I could not get enough power from the sun with this small solar panel to turn this, to have the large gear hooked up to the motor turning a small gear. So this is works much better. And you have that here. You have a very small gear turning a large gear, working its way towards turning its wheel, and a little solar panel on top. And you can move the solar panel based on where the sun is, and it'll move the car along the road. 3 wheels, very skinny tires, also easier to turn. So the thinner the tires, the less resistance you have on the road, because the more rubber, even though it sticks to the road more, it also resists turning more. There's more mass and more resistance on turning and things. So in the past too, very efficient, fuel-efficient cars also had thinner tires. And if you ever look at like a Prius, Toyota Prius, they often have thin tires compared to, let's say like a Corvette, which has really fat tires. All right, so that's Gears here. But what I'm here to talk about is a toy called Gears. And I remember a long time ago, when my son was really young, his grandparents got him this set. And this does all kinds of things. So you have a hand crank, and you can turn the gear, and it turns the gear. So it teaches you about gears. And these things, they all come apart. And then here is another kind of gear that can allow you to turn things at 90 degrees. And I'm going to show you that. And then this wheel hub here, this double hub, what that is for treads. So you can make a vehicle, and you see this fits inside, and then these grip onto the treads. And, you can think of a tread really as like a chain. You can think of this wheel as like a gear, and then it's turning a chain. Now, it's a rubber chain, but that can turn. You could have another wheel here, and then that could be turning another gear, and that would be a machine of sorts. So years ago, when I was playing with my son with this, I wanted to make a 4-wheel drive geared vehicle, and it survived in the box mostly. I had to put some things back together, and I made some modifications to it the other day to show you all. But I was successful. And the thing about Gears to know is, I want to show you how the arrangement of the wheels is not even. Now, the 2 back wheels are in the same plane because there is a shaft that goes all the way through this motor assembly. Your motor is in here. You can see there's a little gearbox, actually. If you ever see any of my STEM classes on radio control cars, there's like a gearbox, and you can always see that there's a little gear. They have it bump out, and that shows you where the gear is. This is not real high powered, so there's no venting to keep the motor cool. It's never going to produce that much power. So these wheels are in the same plane, but the front wheels cannot be, because as you move the wheels through the gearing process, what ends up happening is if this wheel is on the same side as this, it's going to actually turn in the opposite direction from the arrangement of the gears. So as you're playing with it, you'll note, playing with things like that, you'll note that if you're just going to use gears to turn things, one gear is turning one way, but the other gear, the next gear is turning the opposite way, then the next gear is turning the same gear as the first. So this gear is turning, let's say it's turning this direction. This gear is going to be turning this direction. These 2 gears are going to be turning the opposite direction, and this gear is going to be turning the same direction. Let's see, which way does it turn? Actually, it turns the... we can see it. Yeah, this gear, then it's opposite. It's back and forth. When this gear goes to the left, this one's to the right, this one's to the left, this one's to the right, this one's to the left, and then this one's to the right, okay? And so you have to make the same adjustment. What I did is I have it going using, instead of a shaft, I had gears go across the body of the vehicle, and you see how these 90-degree gears, then that's how you can use them. You can transfer energy from this straight gear, these, in one plane gear, to a 90-degree gear, to another 90-degree gear, to a gear in the same plane, to another 90-degree gear, to a 90-degree gear, down to using that 90-degree gear to do a gear that's in the same plane, and then turn the other wheel. And then I did on the other side, I had gears go up and move over, and then they are turning, working their way to turning like this, again, laser or drill piece. And not going to be very effective for a drill because it's not in front of the vehicle, right? So I guess we'll pretend it's for lasers. So if it doesn't fall apart, which this is delicately, this toy is really cool, but it does fall apart rather easily. And let me show you how that works. So all right, so you can see, if you look, you can see how the gears are turning in the opposite direction. Now, that might be kind of an obvious thing when like, well, duh. But it's really not that obvious sometimes when you're building something, and then you find, oh man, the wheel's going the wrong direction. And actually, when I pulled this out of the box on my original design, this wheel wasn't going the opposite direction. I actually had made a mistake, but I was younger and not as smart then. So I repaired it and fixed it, and see, now everything's going in the same direction. See how everything works? So I think you could still get this toy, and it comes with a bunch of pieces. Let me show you here. Actually, we're going to look inside the box, and okay, there you go. So here's your other tread, and then your other hub for the tread, okay, and then you have all these little connecting pieces. So you can make like a tank if you want. You could put the treads on instead of the tires. The only thing is, it doesn't come with the option to have it turn. So there's really no way to have, the motor only goes one direction and then the other direction. So it's not, look at that. A gear, right, this was in the box, yeah. One of the gears cracked. Okay, so I did something, I was trying to take something apart and it cracked. So yeah, be careful of that. But for a learning toy, and it is fun, and it does make you have to really think, because you're not used to thinking about all the different, variables that you have to consider with this. All right, so I'm going to take some of the solar vehicles outside, and we're going to see if they work. It's not a real sunny day, but I suspect it's going to work anyway, because ultraviolet radiation is still coming through the clouds, and that might be enough to move our solar vehicles. Okay, so here we are outside, and it's not sunny enough to move the vehicles, so experiment fail, but we will try that another time. Thanks for watching. Take care.